I do ask every publisher, every editor, and every newsman in the nation to re-examine his own standards and to recognize the nature of our country's peril. In time of war, the government and the press have customarily joined in an effort based largely on self-discipline to prevent unauthorized disclosures to the enemy. In times of clear and present danger, the courts have held that even the privileged rights of the First Amendment must yield to the public's need for national security. For the facts of the matter are that this nation's foes have openly boasted of acquiring through our newspapers information they would otherwise hire agents to acquire through theft, bribery, or espionage. The details of this nation's covert preparations to counter the enemy's covert operations have been available to every newspaper reader, friend and foe alike. That the size, the strength, the location, and the nature of our forces and weapons, and our plans and strategy for their use, have all been pinpointed in the press and other news media to a degree sufficient to satisfy any foreign power. The newspapers which printed these stories were loyal, patriotic, responsible, and well-meaning. Had we been engaged in open warfare, they undoubtedly would not have published such items. But in the absence of open warfare, they recognized only the tests of journalism and not the tests of national security. And my question tonight is whether additional tests should not now be adopted. That question is for you alone to answer. No public official should answer it for you. No governmental plan should impose its restraints against your will. But I would be failing in my duty to the nation in considering all of the responsibilities that we now bear and all of the means at hand to meet those responsibilities if I did not commend this problem to your attention. It is the unprecedented nature of this challenge that also gives rise to your second obligation, and that is our obligation to inform and alert the American people, to make certain that they possess all the facts that they need and understand them as well, the perils, the prospects, the purposes of our program, and the choices that we face. No president should fear public scrutiny of his program, for from that scrutiny comes understanding, and from that understanding comes support or opposition, and both are necessary. I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people. And it means, finally, that government at all levels must meet its obligation to provide you with the fullest possible information outside the narrowest limits. If the press is awaiting a declaration of war before it imposes the self-discipline of combat conditions, then I can only say that no war ever posed a greater threat to our security. Our way of life is under attack. Those who make themselves our enemy are advancing around the globe. The survival of our friends is in danger. And yet no war has been declared. No borders have been crossed by marching troops. No missiles have been fired. If you are awaiting a finding of clear and present danger, then I can only say that the danger has never been more clear, and its presence has never been more imminent. It requires a change in outlook, a change in tactics, a change in missions by the government, by the people, by every businessman or labor leader, and by every newspaper. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. Nevertheless, every democracy recognizes the necessary restraints of national security. And the question remains whether those restraints need to be more strictly observed if we are to oppose this kind of attack as well as outright invasion.
Welcome, everyone. Today is Tuesday, December 2nd, 2025. This recording, we're doing our weekly podcast with Sheila Holm. And if you haven't been following Sheila, I strongly suggest that you do. She has been a mentor to all of us on our true history and where we've been and where we're going. And I like to say we're kind of unbinding how we've been bound, and Sheila's been doing a magnificent job with that, with her books and her studies. And welcome, Sheila. We appreciate you coming here today.
It's good to be with you guys, and I'm so excited because there's so many good things happening, and I can honestly tell you we're getting real close to we the people restructuring what we need to restructure in order to live in freedom and liberty on the land because of so much our president's doing, so much the cabinet is doing, even today. I mean, it's been amazing.
Yep.
The over Thanksgiving was amazing. And then Kash Patel said, just stay tuned because there's going to be a whole lot of stuff happening very quickly after Thanksgiving. And we're there, guys, and it's happening. I can absolutely confirm it's happening.
Yep.
I don't know how much you guys can handle tonight, but I'll answer any questions if
give us a Thanksgiving plateful, will ya?
Oh boy.
I want more dressing.
Oh boy. Oh boy. So here we go. So did you know that they have just released, and I'm pretty sure this came from Elon Musk, that there were more than 3.9 million new Social Security numbers issued to illegals during the Biden administration? Did you know that Elon Musk was on Joe Rogan and he gave two very interesting facts? He said, if I was in charge of Social Security, and remember Reagan told us there's no money in Social Security. It was another way to tax your employer and tax you. But the money is not in a fund. The money is gone. As soon as it comes in, it's gone. The future people paying into Social Security are how you're getting paid. And it's just how long can that last? But now here's the funny part. He's on Joe Rogan and he said, there's two things happening with Social Security that are quite interesting. But if I was the boss, I would have someone call, and I'm paraphrasing this whole summary that he gave because this is a key point. He said, if I was the boss, I would have somebody in each Social Security office calling people and verifying their birth date. Because he said the people 200 and 300 years old, I'd want to know what they think their birth date is, and I'd want to know when they started getting their payments. And he said, but we have a whole nother thing that hasn't even been disclosed yet. And this is what he said. And I knew this was already happening. They're giving people Social Security numbers and they don't want to be tracked as to their birth date. So did you know people are getting Social Security payments who aren't even born yet? They're giving future birth dates to get Social Security payments. Now, I don't want to scare people that it's because it is bad, but it's all going to get straightened out. But here we go. If your relatives end up getting Social Security, they have to wait a few months to get everything set up to start getting the first payment. But the very day that you go to the funeral home to discuss for that family member that they've died, the family has to immediately give the funeral home the entire amount of the Social Security payment back for that month. That's how crazy this is for Americans. Now, here's what's really, really funny about Social Security and the illegals. is that when the SNAP payments, remember they made such a big deal about the SNAP payments, when the SNAP payments stopped on November 1, because the government had already been closed 30 days, and don't you love that it was closed 40 days? I know there's going to be something scripturally, biblically connected with 40-day shutdown, but and a lot of departments were gone, a lot of projects were gone, a lot of money was secured, a lot of people were no longer involved because after 30 days, you don't have to keep them. And so a lot of really good things have happened. I don't think it's all been disclosed yet. But when they stopped the SNAP program, because these people are using our numbers illegally, when that SNAP program related to your number stopped, no more hotel free, no more cell phone free, no more food free, no more credit card free, no more all of these thousands of dollars each going to you. And their Social Security payments have been thousands of dollars. And the majority of Americans are not getting more than $12,000 a year, which is $1,000 a month. So when all of that stopped, the good news was we had the biggest mass exodus of people here illegally because they had no funding to stay. So they chose to leave. So it was a self-exodus process. But now today, just today, the president sent out, he's been doing video, and there's more press than cabinet members in the cabinet room at that big table. And today I was only able to hear a small portion of it. He's giving exact numbers. He said, did you know there's 11,888 killers in this country illegally? And that 11,888, they're killing more than one person each. I mean, do you see what I mean? So he's giving us specific numbers, and people don't think they know how many are here. They don't think they know how many have to go away. And we are still having huge problems with ICE in doing this. Now, why am I mentioning all of this? And guys, just ask me questions anytime you want to. This blew away Jaco. You guys know Michael Jaco.
Oh yeah.
And
Mike's been a
Yep.
big advocate to this movement. Absolutely.
Yep. Well, I was doing an interview with him, and when it struck him, I said, did you know that several of the past presidents are undocumented illegals? It shocked him. And I think we've talked about, didn't we talk about the Bush family that only uses a Bush name in America?
Yep.
Yes. Yes. In our last episode.
Going back to Germany.
yes.
Yep.
Because now I'm going to bring you up to what every single citizen can help us with the election process. Because people are like, I don't know what I can do. So I have some homework assignments for you guys, and you're going to love this. Because
Hey,
know
one thing, Sheila, I want to remind our audience. If you're listening to this, Sheila just reminded me of something when she said homework assignment. I'm reminded of just taking a notebook and a pen. If you're listening to this, please take a notebook and a pen and just jot down everything that Sheila's talking about, because she does have so much knowledge in this. And I would encourage you to go back and re-listen to this and study this, because a lot of this stuff that she's talking about, this is, you have to know this. This is so foundational to what is to come, because we have to know where all this stuff has happened, like with the past presidents that we've had, and who they really were, and all the things that she's talked about with the Georgia Guidestones, and all the stuff that she's taught us so far. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, Sheila, but I just want to at least set that precedent so that people just at least grab a pen and paper, and then if nothing else, bookmark these sections in the video that you can go back to and listen to. So go ahead.
Well, what I'm trying to do in saying there's homework assignments is that we allowed them to flip the switch on us and make it that federal was so important. And I have an entire chapter in book 4 of the book series on the monarch mentality. It was never that there was supposed to be a full-time government in any location in America. if you were going to represent us, you had to own a business, own land, have a stake in this nation. Okay. And as you proceed through positions, you have to be natural born to run for president. So to run for president, that means your mom and dad have to be natural born. And I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but there's a cute little story. And you guys, it sounds like it's humor, but it's not. It's a true story. A professor was going through the Constitution and mentioning this to the students. And a woman broke down in the back and was in tears. And so the professor said, "So what is wrong? Why are you so upset?" And she goes, "I was born cesarean. I can't run for president. I wasn't natural born." And it's like, that's how far off from not understanding your mom and dad have to be Americans, because otherwise we have people coming in. And that's why the president is working on anchor babies. He's working on chain migration, where all these family members come in. He's working on, and now they're just starting to work on what I took to them in May, is student visas. And that's in my nation restoration book. These student visas, they've never left. So we have people in this country 30, 40, 50 years who have just been here and illegally stayed here and have never left. So President Trump just started removing people by temporary visas, removing people by the ones that were waiting for, I think the word was, and I'm pretty sure it was adjudication of their asylum requests. They got to go. They got to go while all that's going on. They're not going to sit here for months inside our country, do what they want to do until their asylum is approved. And so there's all of these cutoffs now of all of these temporary visas that were given to all these different people. And the reins have been pulled in tight. But now here's what Americans can do. Here's the homework assignments. Number one, when I spoke in Harris County in Houston, it's the largest county in Texas. And when I was speaking, I said it's very important for we the people to go into the voter registration office and see the qualifications of all the candidates. You'd be surprised now that we have found out not only did our Congress, House and Senate not take an oath to their position, that our federal judges haven't taken oath to their position, including the federal judges that were involved with J6 cases in DC. They can't sit in the bench. They can't sit in their chair. They can't make laws. They can't spend our money. They can't do any of these things. So I said, check all your local people and make sure they have the qualifications, because what we're finding is, and guys, this is back before the 22 election, let alone the 24 election. And I said, just be sure that you check and see what their qualifications are and have they met that qualification structure in order to be on the ballot. And everybody was like, well, what do you mean they'd have to meet the qualifications to be on the ballot? I said, voter registration is collecting the money, putting them on the ballot, collecting the money, putting them on the ballot, collecting the money, putting them on the ballot. And did you know that the DA, district attorney of Harris County in Houston, Texas, had a suspended license? So he didn't have an active law license to be the DA in Harris County,
Wow.
Houston.
Wow.
And here's what he told the people. Are you ready? They said, "So, sir, how did you not know that your license was suspended?" He goes, "Don't you think I was real busy running my campaign?"
Wow.
He's an attorney. You don't think he was notified that his time was up? And there's education courses you have to do, and he hadn't done them. You have to do that before you can renew your license. And it wasn't important enough for him to do that to become the DA over the county. Interesting times that we're in. Okay, so now let me stretch that up. And I put this out on Twitter, and I don't know if you want to insert anything about that, but I put it out there that, did you know that we have illegal immigrants, illegal aliens that are undocumented, that go all the way to the level of the president and for several terms? So let me explain how this works. And I haven't gone back into the other ones, but if you think about the election with President Trump, Ted Cruz didn't qualify. Marco Rubio didn't qualify. You go down the list, they didn't qualify. So why Kamala Harris didn't qualify? All these people didn't qualify. They all got on the ballot. They all got in positions. So we need American people, volunteers, we the people, because it's our republic, we the people, in order to form a more perfect union. So we need to know, and we need to go in and volunteer to go through all of these candidates and make sure that they qualify. So in doing that, Bush, we talked about this before, Bush was only known as Bush family in America. Everywhere else in the world, they were sure. Everywhere else in the world, they were here and there's no documentation. They were protected by the FBI, who was run by J. Edgar Hoover. Did you know J. Edgar Hoover was undocumented? Dad, Germany, mom, Switzerland, no other documentation. Did you know Mayor de Blasio in New York was a Wilhelm out of Kaiser Wilhelm line in Germany? And when World War I they didn't win World War I, he was forced to abdicate. They came to America. His dad was Warren Wilhelm Sr. He was Warren Wilhelm Jr. And he went through 3 name changes to make him his name sound more Italian to become the mayor of New York. So they're told what to do in order to do it, but none of that was documented. And you and I can't go in and change our name 3 times, and we can't disappear from a name that we had, and we can't come in from another country and not have any documentation. Anyone who came in from Ellis Island had to prove they had no debt. They had to prove what their name was. They had to prove they had never committed a crime. They had to prove all of these things to become an American. But we're at that point now, and this is in the FBI chapter, where we've been set up. The FBI is arresting Americans. They're not arresting illegals. And I proved that, and it's in my Nation Restoration book. They never wanted to arrest them. The first law was passed in 98. Then they said we have to have a penal code. It came in 2001. By 2003, they still weren't arresting. So I wrote the whole talking points memo to get the second law, because they were finally going to call it the home identity theft law, because I was the one writing all this material. I'm the one that had all the documented evidence. And they just called it the second identity theft law. So I couldn't prove to my own family what I was doing. But you know what? They were never going to arrest him. You know, to this day, they're still not arresting him.
Sheila, can I
So-
interrupt you a second,
Uh-huh.
please? So does this also, I just want to make sure the audience knows exactly what we're talking about. Does this apply to the sheriff? Does this apply to the county board? Does this apply to the city board? Does this apply to the school board?
What do you
All
mean?
these-
What does what apply?
What you're talking about making
Do
sure
they
that
qualify?
yes, to
Yeah.
make
Yes.
sure that they're qualified. So I wanted to bring that up so that the audience knows that it's every elected official has to qualify. So I just wanted to make that point.
Right, because that's what we did talk about. Charles Joseph Bonaparte, the great nephew of Napoleon Bonaparte, came and set up the special agents and then set up the structure where they had a plan for every village, town, city, county, state. And by doing that, there's a corporation structure over each that we're not even aware of. And we don't know who the members are that are over that corporation. We don't even know if they're getting paid. It's like they got puppet masters over every structure. Why would a little village have a board of trustees if it wasn't a corporation? So people don't understand. So I've said for the past years, since the 2016 election, what we need to do is make sure that when we are processing the voting on these people, all of these people are qualified to be there. And the focus is all of the people running your money. So when you mention like city manager, councils, they're running your money. The county supervisors, sometimes they're called another name, but the people that have the budgets to do the maintenance of the county is your county supervisors, commissioners. That's the other word. So they call them either name. They're running your money. And in the new book, An Eternal Plan, God had me put the entire first chapter of Titus. Why? So Titus 1 is in the book. And because it explains, they said, you haven't structured it properly in their communities. You must have 2 elders who cannot deceive the people. They would never deceive the people, and they will not participate in grifting. It's right in the structure, and you need them in all these specific areas in your community so that it remains in liberty and freedom for the people. Everything that's been happening with us, and I've discussed this, I think, on our times together often, is that there's secret things happening because these people came out of the secret societies that structured this. So that's why at 26 years old, here's this kid, J. Edgar Hoover. I don't know his qualifications of his mom and dad, but he was born in Germany. How was he ending up running and structuring the FBI and running it for 48 years? He was in the Bureau of Investigation 3 years before he became the director of the FBI. But he'd only been a clerk and assistant for 3 years, and all of a sudden he's the director of the FBI, and he's got the position for 48 years. And I think I mentioned this, who does he bring in as his partner? As the associate director or they almost were a co-director, was his lifetime male partner. And so who's he and who's his family, because we can't find the paperwork because they're not documented. So with Bush 41, who was Sheriff Jr., his father was in the Senate and he was senior. Now, in America, you don't have to be natural born to be in the Senate, but you do to run for president. So he signed a document, nobody else will be in the government. Then his son is in the government the rest of his life after he signs that document. And then his grandson, George W., 43rd president, his parents were Germany. So he didn't qualify to be president. So now what's just happened in this past week? All because, go back and look how much fun the president's having. The pardons on the turkeys, okay? Because the pardons on the turkeys were invalid because they were done by AutoPen. So the pardons on the turkeys had to be corrected. Do you see what I mean? And the pardons were invalid, so they were never pardoned. But the joke is AutoPen pardoned people that weren't even convicted for a crime. You don't pardon a person before they're convicted for a crime. So what did they do? They gave us a pre-planned list of all the people we should be convicting of crimes, because they wanted to pardon in advance of being convicted and sentenced. And that's not how the system works. So all of these people that they're trying to protect, because you wonder how come the immigration system is so completely crazy and messed up, is that they have to keep getting their people in, and it's not as easy to bring them in through Kennebunkport anymore, or it's not as easy to bring them in through Charleston, South Carolina, the World Order location in America anymore, because people are watching. They're starting to look and see, well, what's happening here? People go up on this high hill in Charleston, South Carolina, and they get trained on how to speak English, et cetera, et cetera. And then these big buses bus them down and bring them out into the communities. People have been watching it for years, but they didn't know what to do. But now we have a president that's willing to do it. He comes out before Thanksgiving, Somalia. Then he starts doing all this communication about Ilhan Omar. And then we get this video that Ilhan Omar is honoring her president of Somalia, her president. And she's in our Congress. And she's saying, my president. Do you see what I mean? He's revealing all of this to the American people. So then Tim Walz is now under review because all of this has been happening in his state. And if people don't think the president has the numbers, because today when he said, do you know there are 11,888 killers in America who just want people dead? And they don't just kill one person. They've killed multiple people, but there's 11,888 killers in America. I mean, I'm just sitting there watching this and just going, I mean, this information has to be waking people up. So we can't fix it at the top when the people at the top are also undocumented foreign nationals. Because it doesn't matter how long you're in America illegally, you're still illegally in America.
Sheila, now my next question to you is that also applied to the military? Because we know we did a show a month ago with Pete Hegseth, and when they, summoned everyone, um, does this also apply to military?
Well, I don't know what they're going to do about the military in regard to illegals being in our military, but did you know we've been training people from other nations that are not Americans in our military? Remember when they had that horrible situation at Fort Hood and guys were killed by someone who's not an American?
Yep.
That's,
Yep.
that's,
They announced back then, and that is several years ago, they announced back at that time that 11 to 12% of our American military are foreign nationals. How is that happening? Why is that happening? And nobody was questioning it. And it is back so far now that it was at the same time that I was telling people, do you know that our gross national product is in bad shape? And they said, why? And I said, we're now almost a 70% consuming society. Well, what does that mean? I said, you're producing at 30% and you're consuming at 70%. It's not going to take long, and we won't have any manufacturing. We won't have any businesses. We won't have anything made in America. We're going to have to import everything. And people didn't even know we were paying tariffs. Just now, the president is saying, guys, we've been the one paying the tariffs. Nobody else has been paying. So all I'm doing is making them pay. So we will have billions and billions of dollars to clear all this up. And they gave away all of our manufacturing. I'm trying to put, with a guy in Los Angeles, I'm trying to put a program together with a friend who knows him, a process of making natural fiber fabrics in America. We lost it all. And there isn't a single area where we can get natural fibers from on a regular basis, because everything we get is blends. And what happens with blends? Pretty soon you can't procreate. And that's true for men and women. When you wear blends, you go to the gym, you work out, it kills your ability to procreate. And that's why so many families are fighting so hard with all these very expensive $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 processes to try and have children, not realizing you can't wear blended fabrics. All of this is in scripture. Look up natural fiber, and you're not to blend any fibers. Everything that you're to wear is to be a natural fiber. The what?
No, I'm sorry, I interrupted
Hmm.
you.
That's
I'm
okay. You're
sorry.
not interrupting me. I
No,
want
no,
your questions.
And that's why President Trump says if America goes down, the world goes down, because it's a capture operation and they try to destroy America in front of everyone's eye.
Well, they've destroyed everyone. Remember, I think I mentioned last time in 2000, Venezuela was the wealthiest nation in the world.
Mhm.
Per capita, they were wealthy in 2000, and look at them now.
Yeah. Well, Brazil
But
was extremely wealthy. Yes.
yeah, our world order in America, that's why people say death to America, is that what we haven't understood is that it's been people coming from America doing these things to these nations. And I didn't know at the time, back in the day, I said maybe Jimmy Carter should come to California and help us with these elections, because he's helping every other nation, having no idea what he was doing. And when I came to Georgia, I said, my goodness, it was in 2013 for 3 weeks. And I said, you guys, I think we have the Manchurian candidate. I think that's what we're dealing with right now. And everybody laughed at me. And I said, why is this funny? And they said, didn't you know? And I said, what? They said, the Manchurian candidate was a peanut farm. I said, are you kidding me? And they all knew. They didn't even have to question. They said, look what happened with Iran. Look at the hostages. Look at what he did. He's the one that gave away supposedly the canal, but now we're finding out all of that was a lie.
wow.
So he's the guy that put these things in motion. So we've been witnessing it in our lifetime. So when I'm trying to help people understand, it's not overwhelming. It's a lot of information that we didn't know. But once we gain knowledge, because that's the process, the scripture that I used in the new book, again, is the famous one, because we only get the little snippet of scripture, and it's Hosea 4:6. And in that scripture, it is that my people perish for the lack of knowledge. But nobody read the rest of it because that's a quote. And so people quote the quote. And just so you guys know, when I did the hardback, I made him go back and do the spell check again, and because it was Hebrews, now it's Hosea. Just so you know, it's Agnew, it's not Goldwater with Kissinger. Just so you know that George Washington picture doesn't drop down and take up another page. All of those things that you guys have told me about is all corrected in the hardback, the new hardback book of An Eternal Plan. So as we come through these layers of understanding these things, you can't have the understanding until you have knowledge. So if we're perishing because we don't even have the knowledge, then we're not even trying to figure out with Father what we're to do today. We're not even trying to connect with him to know what we're supposed to do. Because without knowledge, you can't gain understanding. Because if you don't know a thing, you don't know about a thing, you can't say that you understand a thing. And so whatever that thing is, we don't know. And so we can't understand it. And so until you gain knowledge, to have an understanding, you can't go to the Father and gain his wisdom. And that's why so many people say, well, I'm trying real hard and I'm just not hearing from God. I'm just not hearing. Just nothing's working for me. Well, you're trying to use your human wisdom, and you can't be saying to God what you want him to do and how you want him to deal with you, because you're running the show and he doesn't operate. His ways are not our ways. So you're not going to know his wisdom until you gain that relationship with him. So it's a lot simpler than people begin to understand. But in scripture, my people perish for lack of knowledge. And because you have rejected me, my knowledge, I'm going to reject your future generations. And so on to the third and fourth generation. And so do you think that's kind of where we are in America? And that's where we are in these other nations? Because we wanted to be successful in the world. We wanted to be accepted in the world. We wanted to follow the trends of the world. We followed all the idols of the world. We send our children off to these Disney things and Universal Studio things and all that kind of thing. And they wear the uniforms and the costumes and want to dress up. They want to be those people. But we put them in that direction. So how are they going to know? Because they don't know truth growing up. How are they going to know truth and live by truth so they know the way to go when they are older? That's the scripture. Train up a child in the way to go so they will never depart from it when they are old. And that's what the 4 pillars of the faith monument are. So now bring all of that back to the fact of, if you don't have knowledge of who's running your money in your city as a city manager or the city council, there's reasons why particular people and communities are on the city council and never leave. There's reasons why people got in the Senate and never left. And there's reasons why they made it that you have to be so many years in Congress before you can be on a committee. So then people in the state, and this is what they did to us. They drew us down this path, if you think back. And that's why they're in there 40, 50 years, because, well, I'm in Nebraska, and the only way I'm going to be able to get anybody from Nebraska as a chair of a committee is they got to be in there another 30 years. Because the lines are so long to get to the chair position. We don't understand that they've already predetermined who the chairs are going to be anyway.
One of the things that I think is so true to that is when we were on with Juan last week, and you look at some of these the arrogance of some of these municipalities, say in Michigan or in Minnesota, they know that they only have to take control over the water department, the certain municipalities so 100 people can literally take down a community of 13,000, 15,000, 20,000 people because of the knowledge that they have, the evil knowledge that they have, in infiltrating what's happening in our country. And I think that's no more evident than seeing what's going on with the Islamic, uh, things in Michigan and in Minnesota and so forth. But so I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
That is in the FBI point 35. I believe that's chapter 18, but it's point 35. And right in the beginning, and God didn't have me put it in how to take us over when we were before we become self-governing, because that's what they did. That's point 43. But point 35 is FBI, and it's not because of what they did to try and destroy me that there's more than 60 pages in that chapter. It's that we need to know the layers of what they have done in order to become who they are. And they aren't even part of the Constitution, and they're not to be part of our structure. And there's no reason for them. And all they did was keep files on all of us, and they've been arresting us and nobody else. So what did Charles Joseph Bonaparte do? He started the National Municipality League. Where do you suppose it came from? Came from Europe. And people say, well, my municipality, what is that? So the municipality structure became in 1986. They changed the name from what he put it together in the 1800s to National Civic League, but it's the same thing. Municipality civic has the same kind of definition to it. And so when he did this, he made it so that every village, town, city, county, state has a corporate structure over it. We just don't know that it exists. So we've been all upset about the 1871 corporation, and they've locked us down on every single angle in our communities. So it'd be great not to even use the word municipality anymore, because they say right in there that there's only 4 people that you're actually going to vote for. You may have a ballot that's 2 pages long and you think you're voting for all these people, but they've all been positioned. Why? Because Charles Joseph Bonaparte set up a structure where it's a merit-based system. So you can't even get your name on a ballot unless you meet their standards of a merit-based system. I'm willing to bet you have to be in the societies in order to have the points and get the merit in order to do that. And that's what we're changing now. So I'm going to explain to you about America First Policy Institute. I found out about them because they started on January 7 because of January 6. And Brooke Rollins, who's now the Ag Secretary, Brooke Rollins is the one who had a think tank policy institute over in Texas. So the president found out about what she was doing, so he brought her into DC. And she said, "Sir, I'd love to help you in DC, but I've got 2 teenage daughters. I think it was 2 teenage daughters at the time." She said, "I can't be staying in DC when I've got teenage daughters that need me in Texas." So he arranged for her to be able to be at everything for those daughters and still help him. So on January 7, when this happened on January 6, she brought some people together. Linda McMahon, Larry Kudlow, some people that they had worked really closely with to turn around the finances, the economy, everything, because she was working on executive orders, laws, etc. But all of this was harder at that time because it was our lobbyists that we didn't realize who were writing all the laws based on what the puppet masters told them to do, because that was the money flow. And when everybody did what they needed to do, then our Congress people were passing laws, and like they said, they never read them until after they were passed. So they were pushing for things because they were required to push for things. And that's why when you hear them talk, sometimes they don't even know what they're saying because they don't have the basis of what they're doing to us. They're just told this is what you have to do. So that's how they talk. And they promote what they say they have to do. I'm revealing all of these things because this is where we, the people, can make the biggest difference. It doesn't matter if we get the whole election system all cleared up and our voter registration is putting the wrong people on the ballot. And so now we have a lot of military people who are willing to run for positions. And they do stand behind the Constitution. And when they take that oath, they take it seriously. And they are so frustrated that they were sent to all these wars around the world, sent to protect borders all around the world, and they come home and their family is in such a vulnerable spot because they've all been gone. Imagine, I mean, I've heard General Flynn say this many times. It's more than 30 years that I was away. And I come back, how do I even recognize this country as to what's happened here? And then when he tries to say something about it, they go, oh my gosh, he knows too much. Gotta do something about that guy. And that's how they've treated everybody. It's not just Kennedy. It's not just Abraham Lincoln. It's anybody who tried to not have it be controlled by a small group of people. So,
To back up what you're saying, Sheila, I can tell you what happened in my county. You didn't have a choice of who was running for sheriff. You didn't have a choice of who was running for judges because they had no opposition. And this is how they control the ballots. You had no choice on the county attorney because there's only one name on there. The only other thing you could do is have a write-in. And this is how they controlled everything in my county. And I know I've talked to people all over the country on Telegram, and everyone was telling me the very same thing in their counties.
well,
So-
there's more help on the way because America First Policy Institute has an entire section of the organization that works with candidates who want to run for office to help them understand how the process works, to make sure they have the right people helping them in the campaign. Because the only way we're going to be able to shift it to a republic that is not based in any deceit or grift or anything is to have the understanding of who the person is, the character of the person, the integrity of the person. And that's why Titus 1 was, you've got to have two elders who have that level of integrity, that they're not going to deceive people and they're not going to get involved in anything that would be grifting. And that's straight out of Titus 1. And so we haven't stayed on top of this. I just can't even imagine what it was like for the Pilgrims. They just got the Bible, but they understood it to do those 4 pillars. They understood it to realize the trouble they were in. And it was the soldiers who fought for it and know the guys they fought with who lost their lives, over 700,000 people. They know what happened from that in order to know where we are now. And those people involved at the time of the Civil War and in 1847, when they knew things were so bad, Christ was going to have to come back. It's that bad. But Christ doesn't have to come back and fix anything. That's a lie. He saved us. This is our land. Lucifer is the one that says they don't belong here. They're cursed on the land because Adam walked out of the garden and never came back. He just went out of the garden and that was it. So Lucifer has lied to his people and said they don't belong on this land. They're cursed on this land, so they need to die. And so that's the root of everything that we've been dealing with. And we have not stopped to think about what that really does or how that affects our lives or the lives of the future generations, because they've had us so busy just trying to make enough money to just pay the bills, to just have a roof over our head, to have our children educated, to have, they've got us so busy doing all of this. And it was the plan they have us in keeps us from being able to progress into what Father wants us to do, because it was never about the money of the world. And he taught me that when he taught me about your faith in me is what's going to cause you to bless everywhere I ask you to bless. Because when you get involved in his blessing cycle, storehouse principle, and you start functioning in that, you don't have to worry because his currency flows into your life. And I've proven it because I had no way to get through those court cases. I had no way. They were just destroying me every way, shape, and form. All those different social security numbers, driver's license numbers, all this different ID thing, different photos, different addresses. It was just a complete debacle. And it never meant anything. It never went anywhere. It was merged the whole time. Everything it cost me was for naught. Everything. All the get a different car, get a different place to live, all this stuff they did to me. None of it mattered. It was just to keep me busy and not be able to do what Father wanted me to do. So he said, come travel with me. And he paid all of it. And then he proved to me, and I know I've shared this before, he proved to me in 7 trips to London in 12 months. I took a $5 bill when I left. No matter how many nations I went to, I was blessed mightily. It covered all the bills. When I came home, I had exactly a $5 bill after all the currency exchange. And I said, this is pretty funny. And he goes, it's not funny, it's training. And I'm like, training for what? And he said, you're being trained to understand that I don't need your money to have you do what I need you to do. He paid for everything. He arranged everything. And that's why when they wanted me to go out and commission apostles with C. Peter Wagner and John P. Kelly, and I'd be the third person, they wanted me to go do this. I said, there's no way I could do what he does with me. He introduces me before I get there. He tells me who I'm supposed to talk to. He has it all arranged. He knows how I'm getting to all these different nations. He knows who's going to give me a plane ticket to get me back home. And to the other half of the ticket is going to bring me back after he sends me to Africa 7 months later. And I mean, it's just, you can't even fathom what God can do because he's the only one that knows the end from the beginning. But the problem we have in our country is we've all become isolated. We're not even sitting out on the porch and knowing who our neighbors are anymore. We're not doing any of that. We leave our garage, we come back, we pull into our garage, and that's it. And we're isolated to our own families so that they did this on purpose to not have the unity. They did all this remodeling of houses on purpose. Why? They built up everybody's, because the pendulum has not been swinging back. It's constantly been swinging up. That never happens in a real estate market. Ever happens that it just keeps going up and going up and going up and going up. None of this is real. And people didn't realize it isn't real, guys. And so they get you to do all this remodeling, and then nobody says who's buying all these houses at these higher amounts. Most of it was done with our money by people who have our money. They received it through USAID. Title companies were purchasing the houses in 2008. Title companies. And they were under a trust. And the title company name was in the trust, but the trust was based on the year they established the trust. And every year they started another trust. And they're just, picture them just gathering all this real estate under their title company. And that's what they were doing. How did they have the money to do that? And Americans didn't have money to keep their house. So do you see what I mean? Everything that has been done to convince us that we have to cooperate with their system. Everything. So when people say, I just want the president to fix it, guys, at that level up there is never going to fix it if we don't fix where we are. And that's why AFPI is setting up, and I'm mentioning them a lot because, guys, I've noticed the momentum and the involvement from 22. I didn't go to the first one in 21. I didn't know. But I met them in 22. I went to their first gala in 22. And then in 23, 4, and 5, they invited me to be there the whole week. And I've watched the shifting and changing. I've watched them put all these things together. I've watched them. I mean, when I first met them, they said, we got to talk to the president. He wants paper ballots and same day voting. Well, we can't win if they're out there ballot harvesting and they're out there doing 3 weeks, 3 months of pre-voting. If they're doing all of that and we don't. And I raised my hand and he said, what? I said, did you know the president wants to follow the Constitution? And nobody knew. And I remember years of voting When it was a paper ballot, we did it. And when we voted, we signed on a registry that we were we were living in that area as an American, and we were able to do it, and they were able to do the votes, and we knew who the people were by that night. That's not the way it is anymore. Even when he won when President Trump won in 2016, I was at a host family in Central Georgia. I was up till 3:30 Eastern time in the morning because I didn't want to go to sleep and not know that it was done, and it was done. How did it keep changing? They had to keep changing the process because he shouldn't have won. So we can do this, and it is per our Constitution on purpose, is because you can't have a process that anybody can manipulate. You have that early voting, there's counts every single day. They know exactly how much they have to cheat in order to win the election. And people go, well, I don't think that people would do that. You've got presidents who are undocumented foreign nationals. Where do you think your senators are from?
That's what I was
Sen-
going to mention. I'm sorry, Sheila, to interrupt you, but I have here the Executive Order 13848, which is imposing certain sanctions in the event of foreign interference in a United States election. So it adds up. You change the ballots, and plus you have former presidents already interfering in the system. So it's both, it's inside and outside. Am I being understandable?
Yeah. And it's not, it's more than that. It's other countries too.
Yeah.
Even the Five Eyes, even the allies. And with their participation in it, because they were required to participate in it because they're part of that same club.
Club.
So you participate in it, there's never been any consequences. They've all gotten away with it all this time. If you think back, they were all unified in Congress, House and Senate, to take out Lincoln. And when our Civil War soldiers realized that, that's why that soldier monument is so distinctly different than the Faith Monument. And yet the shape of it's identical. And why would they use a Roman or Greek goddess at the top that's a genius of liberty? They have no liberty, and they knew they had no liberty. And so they gave it off to a mythological goddess. Do you see what I mean? They knew what they were dealing with.
That's why I think that ignorance has no play in this, because me being in the state of Illinois, I go back to Rod Blagojevich, one of our governors that were in jail, and because I think that Illinois is the epicenter of corruption in the country. They're good at it, and a lot of the things just kind of filtered through that lens. And I think listening to one of the tapes that he had said when he was on trial, and you hear his plea, and he was basically saying, I thought this was something that was, it wasn't wrong. That's what you just did. This was part of the status quo. I mean, I didn't do anything wrong. I was just told to do this. And I think to that point, to what Anna was talking about, like in Venezuela and all, I mean, all these countries, everything that's I mean, that system of corruption is baked in, not to give you culpability, but baked in to basically inevitably put a nail in your coffin through treason or any other malice that you've done.
Well, the being told to do what they have to do is what that structure is. There's no difference between the top level societies. By the time you're up at that level, you're the same as the top level of the unions. You're the same as the top level of the financial. You're the same as the top level of, And people keep wondering because I was told about the 72 chiefs of Babel that run all the financing and lending in America and other nations. And they said, so when are you going to talk about that? I said, Father's never focused on that because I never focus on Babylon. I'm not happy that people don't realize the Noahide laws were honoring a Babylonian Talmud rabbi. And people go, no, there's only Hebrew rabbis. I said, no. Babylon had their own rabbis. And then they put in the Noahide laws in 92 under Scherf, President 41, and then under Clinton 42, they did it again to the same rabbi. And these are all in the back. All of this is in the back of book 5 in the series, and it's also in the back of the new book. I put the whole wording in and everything so you can see both joint house resolutions. Because they're saying that that was the founding of our nation and our civil society and its morals. I am not kidding you. That's what it says. And it's missing honoring your mother and father. It's missing honoring the Sabbath. And it's missing is the three main ones it's missing that you only honor the one living Lord. And so those are key. And so the Babylonian Talmud is completely different, and the Jewish people said they have their own Talmud. I know they have a Torah, but I'm not. People are trying to tell me you have to know all these religions. I don't. When Jefferson studied the Quran, that Keith Ellison said he used, and then Talib and Elon Omar used the same one, because what they were saying is he was Muslim. He was not Muslim. He studied those religions, and as soon as he read the Quran, what did he do with the Marines? He sent them to Tripoli to take care of the problem over there so it didn't come here. I mean, it's in the hymn, the Marine hymn. But we don't know these things, and people go, well, how does Sheila Holm know it? Because Father draws my attention to it. So when people say, what about the 72 chiefs of Babel? He hasn't drawn my attention to them because I'm not focusing on educating people about Babel or Babylon. Why do you suppose the new language, they said there would be a new language, the new language from them they're using instead of, what's that one stone, the language training process? Rosetta Stone. And there's another new one now called Babel. And I think it's on a lot of computers. They're calling it Babel. Well, that's a new language from Babylon.
Babylon, right?
So training you in Babel is training you in the language and the study of Babylon. And so I don't go there. There's not enough time in the day to keep on the fence about any topic. And so I make sure I don't confuse myself with articles. People keep saying, oh my gosh, Sheila, this is the opposite of what you've been saying. I want you to see this. And it's like, I don't need to see it, because once your eyes and your mind go on to other things, and that's why he said, conform your heart and your mind to Christ, is because he didn't do any of this stuff when he was here. He didn't say any of this stuff when he was here. He didn't care what any of them did. What he did was he spoke to the ones, and people get mad at me all the time. They said, why did you spend time with those people? I don't think they're believers. Christ didn't spend his time with the believers. He didn't spend his time, with people that he thought were educated in the exact way that they should know, and what they should know, and how they should know it, and what they should do. He didn't spend his time with those people. He spent his time letting the people know the potential in their life. That woman at the well, she became one of the best evangelists in all of history because he knew everything about her. She'd never been married. He knew about all the husbands, because as soon as you're with somebody, that's your husband. And so he told her about her life, and it changed her forever. And that's what I pray he lets me do every day. And that's part of the blessing cycle. I want to give information to people that they had never heard before, never understood before. And it's okay. I'm getting used to people calling me crazy, because in 3 months, 6 months, of knowing me, you're going to go, oh, you know, she told me this back 3 months ago, and I thought it was pretty crazy, but now the president's talking about it. Now they're changing things based on that. And it's just, and I didn't ask for this job, but it's what Father does through me. And when he shows it to me, it's so important for me to get it to you, because until I get it to you, we can't make a change. And everything they've done is to disconnect us and not let us be united. Even that whole Antifa BLM. Now, you guys got to figure it out because Black Lives Matter, and you're not treating people like they're Black Lives Matter. And Antifa is just the beginning of anti-fascist. And the people in BLM didn't even know that. I mean, because they only tell them what they wanted to tell them to be the protesters and say these things. They're told what to do, and they're told how to communicate. And if you give up your power and authority and you don't stand in truth, you're in the other kingdom. It is that simple. You're either aligned with the Father doing what he wants you to do, or you're not. I think I've already told it once or twice that he had me pick up the salt and pepper shaker after an event, because I said, I'm getting the word across to them, Father. They're all excited. They want the selfies. We do all of this. And then they're asking questions where they didn't really understand how to go forward in their life. And I have to make it simple. How can I make it simple? And he said, pick up the salt in your right and the pepper in your left. And I'm not going to take you through the whole story, but what he said was, do you think you've surrendered to me? And I said, I hope so. Every day I'm looking at, am I fully surrendered to you? I don't want to miss anything. There is no journey in this life like what Father can take you on. There's nothing that compares with it. It is way beyond. People say, is it like a scavenger hunt? I said, no, it is a treasure hunt. You find out gems all the time. It's happening all the time. You find out how to bless and speak blessings to people in their lives, and you see their lives change. There's nothing like this. You can't compare this with anything else. And so as I'm going through this life, he said, so then if you're aligned with me and you're doing my will, and that's the Lord's Prayer, thy will be done, thy kingdom come. And I said, yes, Father, but what do I tell them? He said, everything else is not. So you're either in the kingdom of life and truth, because truth only resides with him. There's no version to the truth. There's only truth. And truth in life is Aleph, the Father, the Lord over all. That's it. Everything else is other kingdom, death. So you're choosing, when he says in scripture, you're choosing between life and death. You're choosing which kingdom you're operating in. So when Elijah said, who do you represent? Who do you and your house represent on this day? Who do you choose? It's a simple question. But people aren't even thinking about the question because they're comfortable in their life. And they're so upset because they think it's brand new. Not everybody left Egypt. The people who had a roof over their head, they had food every day on their table, they stayed. And then even the ones that walked out in the desert for 40 years, what did they tell him? Look what you have done to us. And they never had to ask for anything. Their clothes and shoes, nothing ever wore out. Sandals, what they wore, nothing wore out. In all that time, everything was taken care of. They were taken care of every single day, never forgotten, never left on their own. And they were so mad that they were still out in the desert. They would have been better off being back in Egypt. But that means you're still enslaved. The opportunity we have right now is the biggest opportunity in all of history. And I always do it capital HIS, small TORY, because it's all his story that we're living. And what I did that after he showed me his best, give them my best. But you can't say my best because it's not Sheila Holm's best. And you can't say that it's all about, everybody just goes, in Jesus' name, amen. I've never, ever seen a witch or anybody in voodoo ever levitate off the ground until I say the name Christ, or Hamashiach in Hebrew. And they even capitalize the M, Hamashiach, where they give emphasis on the Ha and Mashiach. And that's when they levitate off the ground, because they know, if you know that name and you know who that is, and they know. And when they know that, they levitate off the ground because they know you're on holy ground and they could burn. And that's the difference that we haven't stood in and helped our children understand. And that's what we have to do, we the people, in order to form a more perfect union, have to go into our town, our village, our town, our city, our county, and our state, because we have a significant number of states who don't even have a ratified constitution. Right now, Senator Kennedy is putting something through the Senate, and that's for birthright authorization in order to even be in a leadership position in this country. Because we have dual citizens that are in our Congress, and the numbers are like 80% are dual citizens. So where's their loyalty? Again, avoid all loyalty oaths. So it tells you what kingdom they're in. You see?
Yeah.
So if we knew these things, if we understood these things, that we have to start seeing who's registering to even go on the ballot. We have to know who these people are. And that's why we have to start working. And that's why Juan works so hard on coalition groups, is because you have to have a group of people. And he was focused on the governor, the Secretary of State, who's over elections, and the Attorney General.
Mm-hmm.
Why did he focus on those three? If they're not right in your state, it doesn't matter who you've got representing your state, because those three are going to still control everything. And especially if they're the wrong people, you've got problems. And so he kept all those three together in all the different states and worked diligently on this. And that's where most of these names came out. But now we have all of our military coming back to America instead of all these bases around the world that just happened September 30 in Quantico. So now all those people are back. Now, what can we do with them? And which ones of those groups are going to be wanting to do something? But it doesn't mean because they're in the military, they should run for a public office. That doesn't, because it may not be why God has them here. So we all have to look at what we can do, because it can, people say it's so overwhelming. There's so much to do, but God's not asking you to do something about everything. He's asking you to do what he needs you to do today. And if you're connected with him, you would know what you need to do today. But you don't know in advance. I never knew in advance I was going to write all these books. I didn't know in advance I was going to Georgia. In fact, I blamed him. I said, I think you're mad at me, because San Diego, Georgia, there's no comparison. The weather now, we're in the 20s and 30s. And people said, oh, I didn't know it got cold in Georgia because you're in the South. Guys, there's ice on the bridges because it rains all day and then it gets down to 20 degrees at night. You tell me what you're going to wake up to. So, but God has a sense of humor. The bugs, the trees, pollen. 12 months a year, these people have high level pollen going on in the winds of Georgia. And so he has a sense of humor. But I never would have known that I know why the Civil War was so crucial in this country. It wasn't just a line that was crossed. It's the basis of the fight the people were in, who were original people on the land in this nation that we're fighting. And they saw that everything was being taken over from the North, and that's why the South is still mad at the Yankees in the North, is because that's where they came in and resided. And the people in the South didn't want it to change. And it wasn't about a civil war of North and South. It was a civil war of believers and non-believers. And when they figured that out, that's when they stopped and went home. So who are we going to be? And I know we went over a lot tonight. I don't know if you guys have more questions, because I want to make sure that we cover whatever questions you have about what we just discussed, because I hope I gave enough that
You did. No, you did. And I just want to remind, and Jim, I'll let you finish out, because I just want to thank you for doing that. This actually, the book I'm holding is the paperback version of Sheila's book. She has a hardback version that she just put out, and you will have that in the link below. But I want people to know too about Sheila is that there's a lot of people out there, a lot of podcasters, a lot of influencers, a lot of people that are out there, that say a lot of things. Sheila is the one person that she stays in her lane, and she knows her stuff, and she is so well versed from a biblical standpoint, from a history standpoint, on where we are and what we're doing. She's not going to pretend to say something that she doesn't know, and she'll come out and say that. And she said that on several podcasts that we've been part of. But I just want to speak to her humility and what she's done for our community in educating everyone. But I would encourage anyone that wants to learn more truth. I mean, this isn't a book. If you look through the documents of this is facts and truth. I mean, there's so many things inside of each page of these books that are God breathed, that inspired by the Holy Father through Sheila, and she humbly has written these books and has prophetically given us this information as a weapon that we can use as truth, and we can use in our communities at the grassroots level, not at a Fox News level, or not somewhere so grand that we can't understand. But we can apply this to everything that's going on in our community. So, Sheila, I thank you for being on our show, and I'll have Jim, close us out. But I really, really just want to, just do that. Just thank you for that.
Great.
There's one thing I didn't mention. AFPI has already solidified 10 state offices, including California, including Georgia. So I worked hard on those. We don't have Tennessee, but we're working on that. But 10 states can't do it. So
is there a website, Sheila, that we can share?
let me know if you want to get involved, because it is
Yes.
America First Policy Institute. Yep. That is who they are. But let me know, because I'll make connections on the state that you're in, because we want all states, because here's what needs to happen. The states need to ratify their constitutions, have everyone beholden to taking oaths to their constitutions, because God is still the basis of the state constitutions, but they aren't ratified. And when you get state offices doing like what they're doing, they've done more than 85-90% of the executive orders that you're hearing the president sign. They're doing more than that of the laws that they're proposing to replace the lobbyists who were controlled and paid by the puppet masters to make Congress vote things in that we don't even need, and most of it. And so to get these state offices up, I'm not trying to sell you on America First Policy Institute. All I'm saying is, if we don't get the states organized, and because this is while they took us over before we were self-governing, we didn't even know what they were doing to us. We thought we were all working toward this amazing nation of America, and they had us fully controlled from day one. But if we can get the states organized with offices and get the states working together, can you imagine what we can do for the future generations? So I'm not asking anybody to take all this on by themselves. There's already a structure for it. I'll get you guys connected however you want to connect. But you can look at their website and see there's 10 states that are already involved, but I'll directly connect you to who you need for your state if that's your interest.
Yes.
And whatever I can do.
Excellent. Yes, that's great. Anna, did you want to add anything?
I just want to I just want to say a huge thank you and appreciation for Sheila, that she's always here with us, and it's a blessing to hear just the I think the sound of your voice it activates the holiness in my heart, at least. And I understand my life experience is quite the same as not quite the same, but how I connect to God, it's very similar to your to how you put beautifully with your words. And it's like it's a dance, it's a move, it's a music, and I dance with him all the time. That's why I got here to this ballroom with you guys. And I want to say a big thank you, not only for Sheila, but for you both as well, because I'm in Brazil. I'm a Brazilian born. My mother and father are Brazilian. And I know this, all this information, it's so special for American First. But I'm being honored to be taught. Um, in the balcony, I'm watching you guys how you're protecting your country first, and as one is always mentioning, and first is America, then all other countries will follow. And maybe Sheila, you're training me. You know, that's how I feel. I am being trained by listening to you guys. Thank you.
Well, the Pilgrims brought the truth here. We have that advantage. And so that information is the same for every nation because the scripture is the same for every nation. And
Amen.
we haven't followed, and they just got it translated into English and just started to understand it. And already they were boiling the fathers in oil if they trained their children how to say the Lord's Prayer in English. And keeping the women and children to their own devices. And that was in the 1500s when that was happening. And it wasn't new then. And it's the same that we're dealing with now. So that's why anything, and I'm working still to get you the translation, but it's the same in South Africa. They had the truth, lost it. And same thing in America. Pilgrims brought it, we lost it. So all of us are dealing with the same thing. So we're not meaning we're only going to do it for America and you guys are on your own. It's not like that. We're all dealing with the same thing. So as much as we can structure, you can learn from that and structure. I hope and pray.
I'm sure we will.
Sheila, you're a godsend. There's no question
Thank you,
about
Sheila.
it. 107's a godsend. Mike Jaco, I've always resonated with Mike and I appreciate all his contributions. I mean, there's so many podcasters that are doing so many amazing things, and a shout out to the Joshua Reed and Alpha Warrior, and everything they're doing. I want to just share this with the people. They took over our education system and they also took over our churches. So everything that Sheila brings to the table and what Juan brings to the table, and many of the podcasters, even us, bring to the table, is we've got to restore our countries. We've been lied to. Ever since we come out of our mother's womb, we've been living in a complete lie. And this is why it's called the Great Awakening. And as hard as it is to sometimes swallow some of this is the truth. And we're coming into the Christmas season. I cannot stress enough how important of a gift, a blessing, not a gift, a blessing, is to go to hisbest.org and buy Sheila's books. It's the best thing you could do for your family, for your neighbors, for your children, your grandchildren, anyone. Please take the time, go to hisbest.org, look over the information. Many of our podcasts and other podcasts that Sheila's been on are on her website. And do yourself a favor, do your family a favor, do your children a favor. And I'm hopeful one day that her books are part of the curriculum of our new education system.
Amen.
So I say that because I know the journey I've been on, and I know other people have been on the journey. And so many patriots are complaining right now that this isn't being done. We don't know this. We don't know that. We know this. We don't know that. Listen, There is no flip of the switch here. We, as a contractor, we had to strip this country down to the studs, the exterior and the interior. And we got to totally rebuild our country. And once we rebuild ours, then we got to rebuild the other countries, like Anna's Brazil. So there is going to be no flip of the switch. And when Donald J. Trump stood on the stairs of the Capitol, and when he got sworn in 2017, and he said that this day is merely an incredible day, a day that'll go down in history, as we're not transferring power from one administration to another or from one party to another, but we're transferring power from Washington, D.C. back to you, the people. Now it's our responsibility. It's our responsibility to rebuild our republic. And that's true sovereignty. And we're going to have to learn what it means to be sovereign. Do unto others as you would want them to do unto you, and do no harm. And be of service to others. And Sheila, we so much appreciate everything you bring to the table. I feel so blessed to be in your presence. And I've learned so much from you, and we're so ever grateful. So thank you for that. And everyone, please share our video and go to hisbest.org and get your family Sheila's books. God bless everyone. Good night.
Thank you.
Do you remember what Kennedy said? Ask not what your country can do for you.
Yes.
Ask what you can do for your country.
My name's James McCrank. I would like to ask the board a question. Are you guys familiar with the Nassar Act? Are you familiar with it? If you're not familiar.
Can't say that I am, but we generally don't respond, so go ahead.
Okay. Well, it's important that we do get response, because we're not getting any response, and that's why we're all here. The bottom line is this. The United States of America Corporation is dead. Trump killed it 3 years ago. That flag doesn't represent us. That gold fringe around that flag is the signature of the corporation. And the reason that the media is not reporting it, the reason you guys aren't showing up, our sheriff isn't showing up, are you guys part of the corporation, or are you part of America? Because everyone here is standing up for our rights. What legacy are you guys going to leave behind for your grandchildren and your kids? And I'm surprised that there ain't thousands of people here tonight. Either we got to do the right thing here, audit these elections, or the military is going to come in and do it. And if they do it, people are going to jail.
Through the storm, our birthrights that the bankers stole, they engineered each crash. They filled their vaults with the people's gold as they printed paper cash. A casino called the stock exchange, where the gambling begins. An investment tool to tempt the fool, where the dealer always wins. In this corporate world of government, where nothing's what it seems, your pathway set with every step to a grave of broken dreams. Unlearning everything we knew is a painful place to dwell, as a wizard sits controlling you behind his hidden veil. A global world agenda set by the deep and darkest state. They're puppets dancing on a string to divide the world with hate. The American dream and our flag of hope, they never let us be. We will serve each other under God in the land of the brave and free. We all saw our world collapsing.
The next thing that's got to fall are these failed, corrupt institutions. And when God Almighty sits and takes that judgment seat, it's over. So do what you can to improve the terrain, until there is freedom.
We are the people, we are sovereign, moving forward through the storm. Don't be afraid and hold the line. In the royal house we stand. Like McKinley, Lincoln, Kennedy, we were told to trust the plan. The grandmasters playing 5D chess, they all know the art of war. Real generals on this battlefield led the Anons through the door. Information is the biggest threat in our search to find the proof. Such patriots we won't forget, who all dare to share the truth. We once stood alone